what would be the fallout of 17.5 disenfranchised voters if there's a second referendum and it flips? Will we see a rise of the far right coming into Parliament? What are the things that actually could go wrong with so many disenfranchised voters?
17.5 million of them are new, sir. Is it going to make the same point, perhaps?
Well, Caroline Lucas said earlier on that she respects people who voted Leave and that many of them were angry and that's why they voted. How angry do you think they will be if there's a second referendum, which you're calling for, and the vote is to remain? How angry do you think they'll be? The people will never vote again. There are people who voted for the first time. If a referendum is a grown-up thing to do, weren't we grown up when we had the first one?
How do you think we should get out of the? How do you think we should get out of the mess we're in then?
Well, I just feel deeply insulted when people suggest that we who voted Leave didn't know what we were voting.
I was not saying that. I really did not. I said all of us, including myself, who's been following this, and I think all of us now have a lot more information because there's a deal on the table. Before, there was an abstract idea of do you want to leave, do you want to remain? Now we absolutely have the detail and we can see it. And if people still want to leave, then that is exactly what will happen. But, you know, every single Brexit opportunity that is in front of us entails the country, A, being a lot poorer, and it entails Parliament being completely gridlocked. So in terms of how to move forward, it feels to me like the only way out of this impasse is to give people the right to have a look at what's on the paper. And if they like it, then they'll still go for it. So I don't know why people feel afraid of that option, because it's simply making sure there's a lovely saying, I think it's a saying from tailors who cut things. They say always measure twice before you cut. Before you do something really radical, just make sure that everybody's on board.
All right. I'll come to you up there. But Nicky Morgan, can you see circumstances when a second referendum will be the only way out? And when you...
Well, it will only be the only way out in two circumstances. Either MPs don't perform their representative duties, and I think there is absolutely a majority in Parliament for... to stop a no deal, and there is a majority who wants to find a sensible way through this consensus. Or alternatively, it will happen because members of the ERG block any agreement that the Prime Minister brings back and leave her in such a position that there is nowhere else to go. But actually, this whole debate has been fascinating. I was just writing down...
Well, they will, won't they? Well, they will block, won't they?
Well, but then the question is, how can Parliament find a consensus?
Rees-Mogg's going to block anything she comes up with. He wants her to resign and go to the palace.
Absolutely, completely not unconstructive at all. But Caroline just finished with that, with saying, let's have a second vote, and then everybody is on board. The honest truth is, just listening to this audience tonight, listening to my constituents, listening to debate, we're never going to get to a situation, as the lady down here said, where everybody's on board, because this is the most divisive issue that certainly I have ever come across in my politics, and I suspect the rest of the panel have too. And the honest truth is, there are no right answers. There is no answer that everyone is going to coalesce around. There is an opportunity to do exactly what the gentleman down here said, which is to leave the EU, not something I voted for, but I understand 17 million people did do that, but not crash our economy and ruin people's financial prospects and livelihoods. And actually, Caroline was right to talk about the reasons why people voted the way they did in 2016. But the honest truth is that UK politics has completely stalled. We have no bandwidth to tackle the issues that Caroline has identified and others have. That's the reason. Well, the reason it is
all the parliamentarians. I hope you all failed because
well, we haven't
you can't organise a
all right. You shouted out, but say it again clearly.
Sorry, I mean, like, isn't it all parliamentarians' fault? Labour doesn't provide effective opposition. The Conservative Party are so divided that they can't even unite behind the Conservative manifesto, whatever that may be, and you guys are so divided internally that having a second referendum. Yes, you are. You're divided, but the whole party is divided.
But the reason
Labour doesn't provide effective opposition, so like politicians.
So what? Hang on a second. What's your solution? Because are you suggesting they're all acting in bad faith?
Yeah, they are. They are all acting in bad faith.
Wait a moment.
No.
Wait. Are they acting in bad faith, or are they all speaking to their conscience and the thoughts they've had after discussing this for 2 years? Are you accusing him of acting in bad faith, her acting in bad faith, her acting in bad faith, her acting in bad faith? Is that what you're saying?
I think Theresa May is doing what she can, but in delaying the vote, she's self-serving. She's trying to pursue her own agenda, and
can I come back?
I think parliamentarians have to work together to find out what the common goal is. There isn't a perfect
go on. OK, go on.
But the point is, you're absolutely right. We haven't yet had the vote. So actually, it was inevitable. It's taken 40 years to get this far into the EU. It's going to take some time to disentangle and have negotiations. It's a 2-year process which runs out in March of this year. But the point is, there has to be legislation to have a second referendum. It's not provided for. That's more time spent wrangling. Then we have a debate about the question. Do we have one? Do we have binary? Do we have 3 questions on the ballot paper? More time wasted where things aren't being sorted. You're absolutely right. We need to get on, have a vote in Parliament, get the MPs to sort it out and move on as a country.
The woman at the very back there has been patiently waiting. Yes, you.
I think a second referendum runs the risk of dividing the country even more, if that's possible. So I'd like to ask, does anyone on the panel support a citizens' jury to make the decision?
A citizens' jury?
Yeah.
A handful of people, you mean?
Randomly selected.
Randomly selected who go into a
From
closed...
each constituency, for example, as a sample,
I
and then a
think
bigger
there's a lot of
sample.
How about this panel?
I mean, I think you need more than this panel. You need, but that is a serious proposal that people are looking at. You're quite right, with maybe 500 people going away and trying to resolve it. Yeah, I would be, if we could, we'd have to make sure that we could extend Article 50, which we probably could for that kind of democratic process. But then maybe that is the best thing to do, because we are so divided. I mean, personally, I still think that, you know, the more likely thing in terms of the fact that we're running out of time is to get the people's vote. But I wish we'd started 2 years ago and gone straight to a citizens' jury, because the evidence from around the world is that they can come up with answers to incredibly complex questions and could probably do a better job than we have.
Sorry, let's just get...
Marriage.
What?
Like in Ireland, they did it for same-sex marriage, and that didn't divide that country.
But are you seriously suggesting, Caroline Lucas, the Green Party policy, you get 500 people, I don't know how you choose the 500, and I would hate to be one of them, because if their names get out, whatever they decide, they'll be in trouble. That's the way to go forward. That's what you would prefer to see.
I think 2 years ago...
Policy.
No, it's not Green Party policy.
You just said you like the idea.
Well, yeah, I do like the idea, but not everything that I like is Green Party policy. But what I'm saying is, if we had done that 2.5 years ago, well, if we had done that 2.5 years ago, I think we're running out of time now, which is why I think we need a people's vote. But 2.5 years ago, and there are plenty of, you know, you can make fun of it, but there are plenty of examples, as you say, from Ireland and all around the world, of places where deliberative democracy, you put the issue back to the people, and there are organisations who are incredibly well experienced. It wouldn't just be me going through my address book and picking up 500 names. It would be a properly independent process. And
I don't think they'd trust it if it was you picking out 500 names.
I don't think they would, quite rightly so.
Joe Brand.
Can I just say I feel quite perky sitting here that I'm not an MP. I think I might postpone my answer until I feel I have a bit more support coming up at me from the audience. But I want to say that after we voted to leave, I kind of felt embarrassed and ashamed about the increase in racist incidents in the country. Almost as if some people felt they then had permission to be vocal and even physical in some cases, that's what the vote had given them. I would support a second referendum. I'm not 100%. I'm not 100% sure I can justify it. I just want it. That's all. I'm sorry, I do.
I'll come back to... I think we might come back to this race issue in just a moment. But just let's have a question for you, actually, from Tom Phillips.
What would it actually take for Corbyn to vote for May's deal?
Did you hear that? What would it take for Corbyn to vote for May's deal?
Well, Tom, there's been a couple of issues, really. We talked about the Northern Ireland situation and the border right early on. We also, you know, we have been quite clear from the start that we needed to have close alignment with the European Union. And in terms of the effective opposition, if it wasn't for the opposition, we wouldn't have had the legal advice disclosed. We wouldn't have had a vote in Parliament. If you remember, Theresa May didn't even want to come back to Parliament with the deal at the beginning. So we have pushed all along. And, you know, it's really important for people to understand and get that actually, and Nicky Morgan said it earlier, that there is a consensus in Parliament against a no deal. And we do want to respect the referendum result, both big political parties said that in our manifesto in 2017. So we could have had that. The problem is that Theresa May set herself a load of red lines because of the hard Brexiteers in her party that was holding her to ransom, rather than going out there and working across the House about how we actually got a deal that works in the best interest of the British economy and in our jobs and our future going forward.
So what would it take?
Well, it would take dealing with the Northern Ireland situation, making sure that we have access to a customs union and making sure that our jobs and the economy is safeguarded for the future, because we're talking about billions of economic damage if we don't get that right. And the current backstop doesn't give us any reassurances on anything of that. And the one thing, like I said before, that it has done is it's united Parliament. It doesn't matter which side of the fence you're on, it's united most politicians in saying this is a really bad deal and we don't want it.
All right.
I still believe we could get a deal in Parliament.
Do you believe that?
I do.
OK. Do you believe that?
Yeah, I think we get a deal.